Welcome, my friend. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So, if you wouldn't mind to begin with, will you just tell everybody who's listening along today, like who you are, where you're from? Tell us a little bit about your business model to begin with, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin with Andrew Samplawski Photography. I have a 1,500 square foot studio downtown Chippewa. My focus is high school seniors, weddings and destination weddings, along with portraits and headshots and families. So that is my main focus of what I do. Working with White House, obviously, is my print lab. So that's what I focus on, and making a difference in other people's lives and giving them memories and creating some pretty cool images.
Cool. So, Chippewa Falls, home of Leinenkugel's beer.
Lonnie Kugel's less than 5 minutes from my studio, 8 blocks down the
Nice.
way. Yeah, it's great. Yep.
That's awesome. So, something that I think is really interesting about you, and I always have, is photography is not all you do.
It is
You,
not all I do.
what is the other thing that you do?
I am also a flight paramedic. I work medevac in the helicopter.
Wow, that's incredible. I think
Yeah,
that's so
not too
impressive,
many
Andrew.
people know that. So
Yeah.
yeah, we like to keep it that way.
Yeah. Well, we can cut that out if you don't want to share.
No, that's totally fine.
I think that that's really impressive. I mean, you might not know this about me, but I was a EMT and a firefighter for 10 years, or first responder, not EMT, first responder. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
in
awesome.
my
In one of my previous lives. So I have a lot of respect for you being able to take over in those critical situations and, and care for that person, you know. So, yeah.
And honestly, this photography is my stress relief. People all go out, they drink, they party, they travel, they do their other things, they have other stuff. Honestly, it's nothing ever great happens in the helicopter, unless it's a
Yeah.
really good outcome. But in that heat of the moment, it's never great. And so with that is this is my reason to get out and go see happy moments, memories, see families, see reasons why people survive, and get to see those families at wedding days. It's like, hey, my grandpa had a heart attack 2 weeks ago and he's at my wedding today. He was in the helicopter. It's like, oh, cool. They don't know I work in the helicopter, but to
Yeah.
see that 2 weeks ago, there was a life decision of what was going to happen, and he may or may not have survived, but yet he can be present at that wedding, which is pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's really awesome. What an amazing thing to do, and to balance that with photography, and I can only imagine being in the helicopter and those intense situations. You have to just be exhausted after that. I mean, it has to just drain the energy out of you.
Yeah, some days I'm like, hey, I am scorched. I am done. I just
Yeah.
need a half hour. I need to go find some food, and take back and relax a little bit for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to ask you a few questions about your business today, if that's cool. And we're just going to have a cool conversation in comparison with, like we were talking about, like 10 or 11 other photographers from across the country. I think you have a very specific style of business that people can relate to. Either they're trying to do it, or they're like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool to be able to travel and do the things that Andrew's doing. So I appreciate you sharing with us today. So looking back over the time that you've been in business and been doing this, has there been a specific idea that success has come from for you? Like early on, did you decide, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to try this, it worked out awesome? It could be yesterday, it could be years ago. Is there one thing that kind of jumps out at you that you could talk about?
Yeah. The biggest idea, and it was ultimately, it just kind of fell upon my lap, was creating a truly, like, a piece of artwork. So when you go shoot destination weddings, you're on a mountaintop, things like that. And everybody wants sunsets, everybody wants cool clouds, everybody wants something more than just a standard photo that they can't get on their iPhone or on their
Yeah.
Android or whatever. And so I started adding a little bit of talent kind of behind it in post-production, maybe
Okay.
kicking in sun flare or sky swap or something like that. Or it is just god awful windy out that day and you have veil, you can't even get some cool veil pictures, any of that kind of stuff. Creating a work of art more than just a standard photo. And so when shooting a wedding, you're shooting thousands of photos that day, delivering 700 to 1,000 images for the final delivery, creating one epic, awesome photo for them to hang above their couch. I'm shooting for the final destination, what's going to go in the book, what's going to be going on the wall. And so creating that little simple piece of work of art and using that to build your portfolio has always been my key to success. And so I've been kind of keeping those under the radar a little bit just for print competitions, things like that. But those have been the big ones that really stand out. It's like, whoa, that is pretty sweet.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, like, each time that I email you, if you happen to be traveling or something, I get your out of office, and you always list, you know, here's my destinations. I'm going to be here during this time. I'm going to be here during this time. I'm going to be here during this time. I'm assuming that some of that is probably for vacation or pleasure, and some of it is for work. Like, you've developed this style where people see you on the go, and you are photographing on mountaintops, and you're traveling to Las Vegas, and you're doing all these cool things. Like, as you're looking into the next year, Andrew, is that something that continues to grow in the business and you're wanting to do more of that? Or tell us a little bit about the destination side.
Yeah, destination super fun. It is a ton of work. I'm going to be very frank with you. I'm going to locations that I've never shot in, trying to figure out permit wise. I was just in Hawaii in May. And so I did a wedding there to go go get beach photos. It was a $1,500 permit. So finding those little quirks and loopholes and things like that is like, hey, how can we still get beach photos, but still be legal and not push buttons and walk boundaries? And so doing those destinations have been good. I was just in Nashville last week. I just got back, did a destination wedding down there. I had 2 high school seniors follow me because they knew I was going to Nashville. So with that email signature, it allowed them to come to the locations that I'm already going. They just have to get there. And so I was in New York in June. I had 2 high school seniors follow me there. And in Las Vegas, I have 2 models out there that work in the model industry, talent industry, that are wanting to grow their portfolio. So I'm going out there for a wedding, also shooting 2 models. We're going out to the Valley of Fire and things like that. So, and then Salt Lake City shooting on top of mountaintops because they're huge skiers and snowboarders. So creating those really cool images with that and creating an experience for them. And yes, that does continue to grow because people just don't want every day. It's like, oh, barns are barns and things like that. And so it's like, hey, let's go somewhere cool. This is where I'm going. If you want to meet me there, let's go do some epic, awesome pictures. We can do a glam the dress session, anything like that. Or if you're like, hey, I might be getting married in Minnesota or Wisconsin, but I want my engagement session to take place in New York City, somewhere where we've never been, gives us a reason to go. And they're like, you're going there, just meet me there. So those travels have definitely continued to grow, and I foresee to continue to grow now that we're kind of getting back to a normal everyday life with the whole pandemic. So it's like, hey, you know what, let's go places, and people have that little extra money set aside. We may not think that, but they do have that money, and they will find a reason to go, whether it's a mini vacation, and still get epic, cool pictures.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, thinking of how fun it would be to photograph in New York City.
Yeah, it's a blast. It's a nightmare, but it's a blast. And it's good because there's so many people, and you just have to be able to hit lights and traffic and things like that. Construction, you're shooting around different scaffolding of buildings and things like that. And it's like, where can we go that we can get some really cool stuff without having to put hours and hours and hours in post-production? Because that's not my thing. I'm like, hey, let's shoot it right the first time, and let's create some magic on the back end if we can.
Yeah, pretend that it's film in the camera and not a digital file.
Exactly. Because nobody ever likes to sit at a computer, especially me. I'm like, gosh, no, let's shoot it right.
Different.
And then, let's add a little extra kick if we need to.
Yeah. So since you mentioned and brought up, kind of getting back to, life as usual, have you noticed a trend or a change within your clientele of wanting to go more towards experience-based sessions and things of that nature post-COVID more than before? Are people like, I'm going to do this because I may not get to, at some point?
Yeah, for sure. Especially with my high school seniors, those seniors that had to go through COVID without getting senior pictures inside or doing their extra stuff that they had to. This year was a huge year for me, especially I increased my prices just because I'm like, hey, everything else is going up. elevated my prices more than I'm comfortable with. I'm already 3,000 to 5,000 for a high school senior. So with that is I increased them a little bit more, giving them a little bit more experience, more opportunity. Adding hair and makeup was huge, because what high school senior female doesn't want to be glammed up for the day, to not have to worry about my hair falling down, my makeup smudging, things like that, when all of that can be done for them. Moms and sons, moms love to spend money on their sons, and dads love to spend money on their daughters. So if you can find those two, and if you can get the oldest child and the youngest child, you will get every child in the middle. And whatever the oldest child get, every kid will be down below. So
exactly, except for the last one, they're usually the spoiled ones.
Usually, yes. I just had an $8,500 sale come in, and she was the youngest, and there's a 10-year gap between her next sibling up. So it's been awesome. Dad's like, whatever you want, and they just kept adding on. And it's like, cool, and creating that experience. And I'm not a huge salesperson. It's like, if you want it, you can get it. But I will continue to push you to the word of no, is like, no, I think we have enough. And it's like, oh, okay, no big deal.
That's awesome.
And then it's like, hey, did we talk about graduation cards and things like that? And they're like, oh, we forgot about that. So you can that a little bit harder. But creating that experience, giving them multiple opportunities to have a hair and makeup change, to have different outfit style changes. I do an unlimited outfits for my high school seniors. When I say I need 25 outfits for my 3-hour session, moms are like, what? But then I send them a link that they can shop and do some online styling with the link online. Then they're like, okay, this is cool. I also have a style closet here at my studio where they can come in and kind of pick and choose and make pieces, and we can kind of piece things together back and forth. And they're like, I never even thought I would ever wear this on everyday fashion, but yet I'm going to wear this Monday when I go back to school. And it's like, heck yeah. A new insight of what, giving you a new fashion style that you never thought you would have ever worn, but it yet looks really good when you put it on.
That's super cool. And I can remember, back in the day from being in the studio, there was always a few pieces of clothes that mom would bring, and the daughter's like, no, and then I'd be like, I really like that. And then they're like, okay.
Yeah, it still happens. Mom's like, I really like this piece. And so you walk that fine line of what the senior wants and what mom wants. And at the end of the day, if you can kind of piece things together that mom never thought of, the senior would have never thought of, and make that happen, just be like, let's try it. Give me 5 minutes. If you don't like it, that's fine. We can hit delete. But at the end of the day, that's usually the front cover of the book, because they like those. And you got to work a little harder on that outfit.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in your business, with all the stuff you have going on, do you have staff, Andrew, or is it just you?
Nope. I have 4 other photographers, and then I have offices.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you are a staff of 6 total, including you.
Correct. Yeah. Wow. Yep. So with that is, if I'm already booked, I have other lead photographers that will go out and shoot with seconds to go with them.
Okay. That's awesome. I did not know that, so I'm glad that I asked that question. So you being an organized person and a business person, I think that you are business first, in planning and in all those things. How do I want to ask this? How do you create your action plan? How do you take those ideas, the things that you want to do, and make them actionable items? And then second part of that would be, how do you get your staff to do that? Because we all know, especially with a staff of 6, to keep people going and on task, that's not an easy thing. So do you have kind of a magic wand to that really works for you?
Yeah, with that is, I use 17 Hats, client resource management system. That is literally my bread and butter. If that's how I keep the team on task, I'm kind of in my own little world, do my own little thing, because I'm pre-planning for next year. Is this year's sales, this year's products, this year's opportunities in the sales room is setting me where I can go for next year. What can I do for next year? What do I want to sell? What's not selling? And how can I make that a better opportunity to make that a higher priority? So acrylics this year were huge. Wood prints, not so much. Canvases, not so much. But kicking a frame to that canvas, families love it. It's been awesome. So I've gotten a few extra in my studio that I'm like, hey, this frame canvas, like people like canvas, you might have old canvases, but adding these framed canvases into your other canvases, it'll look really well. And they love it. And it's like, okay, giving them a different idea, a different perspective of what could potentially be if they gave it a chance. And so kind of my forward thinking of what's coming down the pipeline, what can I do? And then as far as what is my current sessions happening of how can I make it work for them of what they want at the end of the day.
So if I'm understanding that right, you're really making data-driven decisions.
I am.
What's staying, what's going. There's not an emotional side to it. It's we sold X number of this here, this one dropped to here, that's jettison. We're going to do something different. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Collages or clusters, if you will, have been a huge thing. Giving them, instead of 1 8x10, like the standouts, for instance, from White House, you can get 4 images on a 21x21 instead of 1 8x10. And I'm like, it'll be worth it. It'll be something that you have hanging on your wall, and they're 5x7s or greater. So it's not like they're small prints. And they're like, well, that makes sense. And I'm like, and you're going to have to frame it eventually at some point. Why not just get the standout? And they're like, okay. And then I showed them different other layout standouts. And it's like, okay, I like this one. I have this weird spot in my home that's narrow, but I'm like, we can do a 15x30 standout with 3 verticals right there. And they're like, done. Okay. You just put the vision in their head, and usually it flows.
That's awesome. I've heard a lot of really good things about 17 Hats. In fact, you're the second one today that's brought that up. So that's must be a really strong piece of software to use.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's got your workflows, invoicing, bookkeeping. My bookkeeper loves it just because she can log in remotely and kind of do her thing, and it's truly awesome.
That's awesome. So we kind of got into this a little bit at the beginning, but most photographers that I know really have a strong why. We were talking about Matt Matthews, and his why is his mother. What is your why, Andrew? Like, what is the reason you do this?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. I do the paramedic stuff. This is my stress relief. And it's crazy. I normally don't tell this story, but as we grew up, I wasn't a poor family, but also we didn't have a lot of money. And so with that is my parents wanted to go to Walmart to get our family photos. And I was like, this is not a good experience at all. Sorry. But the big box stores, no, I'm sorry. Hence why they're no longer a business. But with that is like, I wanted to give people a reason to show them and build their confidence of what the world really sees them at. And I am a huge believer in print. Digitals, I'm not a huge fan of them. I just don't like them, just because I'm like, I took so much effort in creating these images, and now you just want them on digitals, which I know you're not going to do anything with. And so I'm a huge print proponent, and my clients know that up front is, hey, digitals are way more expensive than they are for prints. And so with that is, I believe it should be in print on display to share and show, rather than sitting in a cloud somewhere or on a USB or whatever. So yes, it's great for social media. I'll get you the social media images, but at the end of the day, it's like, you should showcase your senior pictures. You should showcase your family photos. In weddings, how many weddings have you been to that you never see their entire gallery? I have the online gallery in the collection for a reason, so then they can share and show other people of what their full wedding day was like. Because we're out doing candid moments on wedding days. It's those little extra group shots that they do. And you may not get to chat with them or hang out with them, but at the end of the day, it's like, oh, Uncle Bob and Aunt Mary were there, because you got to see that photo. You never got to touch base with them. So doing that and giving them a reason to see more than what they would normally see, and how they perceive themselves through photos.
Yeah. So you're really, your why is both for you and for them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Getting the relationship emotional side of it for your clients, and also providing you with some stress relief, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, going out and hanging out with 2-3-year-old kids, it's a blast, and letting them just be kids and not have to worry about, hey, smile, say cheese. It's like running around having fun with them just as much, and letting them take photos of mom and dad, me obviously holding the camera, but gives them a purpose. Be like, oh, I did this myself. And so I'll include those in the proofs, and they're like, oh, mommy and daddy. Those are the fun things, just seeing their confidence and building those trusts with those kids, because that is our future. That is what we have.
Yeah, I've heard this several times, and it popped into my head when you were saying that the experience is uniquely tied to the product. You cannot separate those two. You look at an image and you immediately go back to what that was, and those parents would do that exact same thing. You know, like, oh, it wasn't actually the photographer taking that picture. He was holding the camera, but the kids took it, you know, and that you could never separate those two things, which is awesome, you know. And that's why we print. You know, so when you see those on the wall, it takes you to that place. It's really, really important.
And telling that story behind it as the parent says, hey, little Johnny took this photo of us. We had to get it because he took the photo with the photographer. Like building that relationship and that emotional connection. I didn't even sell it. The parents bought it themselves based upon that emotional connection. I just created that connection for them to buy it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we let you go here, I have one more question for you. If you were going to give a piece of advice to anybody watching this today, if they're, you know, getting going, if they're, you know, been in business for a few years, if they've been in business for 25 years, what would be your advice from your experience that you've had in the photography world thus far?
My biggest advice is we all get soaked into what each other's doing. It's like, okay, John, whoever down the street's doing one thing, whoever down the other street's doing another thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, never forget your why. Why did you start doing business? Why are you doing what you do? And at the end of the day, if your why isn't being fulfilled, then business isn't going to go forward. And so it's like you started this for a reason. And why did you start it? And so I always bring myself back to that is like, hey, why did I start doing business, especially in the winter months and I'm not out shooting or I'm traveling, things like that. It's like, oh, I'm going on another trip somewhere. I have another destination. I have this, I have to prep for things like that. And I'm like, okay, it can be draining. It can be exhausting. But at the end of the day, it's like, why did I start doing what I do? And I can't not ever forget that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. One of the photographers I talked to this morning, they have created a charter in their business. And basically what you just said, and she said the same thing. She's like, if we're ever having a hard day, you know, we encourage each other to go back and look at that charter. You have your own internal charter where you're on a hard day, you know, it's like, okay, why did I do this? You know, and obviously you have to make money to be in business. That's, you have to be able to do it, or it's a hobby at that point. But at no time during this whole time did you mention, oh, I'm doing this for the money. You know, it's you're doing it for the right reasons. And it's amazing how when a person does things for the right reasons, other things come along with it. You know, you don't get a $8,600 sale from somebody not having a stellar experience. You know, it just wouldn't happen, you know, so I commend you for that. So, well, I really appreciate you hanging out with us today, Andrew. I know you're a busy guy, and enjoy your travels, travel safe, and we hope to see you. Hopefully you're going to be traveling to some trade shows in 23 so we can connect with you there.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And thanks for you guys of what you guys do, from YouTubes to podcasts to doing the different workshops and groups and that kind of stuff. Like, that's fantastic for us, because that just shows that you guys support us, and you may not hear it or see it, but we appreciate it on the photographer side of all that you guys do and the work that you guys put in behind the scenes that we don't even realize. Awesome. And also the cool gifts that we get.
Yeah. I mean, the Yeti is pretty cool, I have to say.
Yeah. So, well, thank you to you guys. Greatly appreciate it. Keep up the hard work. I know things are challenging on your end with employees and staff, but hey, your team is grinding, and we're going to grind with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Enjoy your day.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Yeah.